And it all starts with culture. Have you ever heard, I'm sure if you ever heard Eric Sanchez talk, you heard him say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. 1,000% believe that's true. Any initial engagement we go into with any firm that we work with, it all starts with culture. This is why we insist on meeting all the people in your, not all the people in your firm, but the people who are leaders in your firm, the people that have influence in your firm. And we're not talking about like the leaders in title. We're not talking about, you know, your managing partners or the firm owners. Like, we want to talk to the people actually doing the work, the people actually kind of have their ear to the ground, the boots on the ground. This is where we're going to find out really what your culture is and if it is actually fitting what you intend it to be. It all starts with this. It's not the ping pong table you have in your break room. That doesn't make a big culture. So, you know, Google has all those fun things in their offices. I have a cousin that works for Google. I hear about all the fantastic toys that they have and breakout things that they have, and it's great. That's not actually what makes the culture there. I worked at a firm for many years that had initially a pool table in the break room. Never even saw it used. And it really didn't speak about what the culture was in that firm. Culture is not what you celebrate. It's what you tolerate, repeat, and reinforce every single week. 3 inputs every week. A firm is either built or eroded by these 3. Behavior, what people actually do. So when a client calls 4:55 p.m., say on a Friday, what kind of service are they getting? Is anyone even answering the phone? Are they answering it the same they would on a Tuesday? What they are actually doing. 2, standards, explicit and signed off on. Your firm needs to have written expectations from leadership. If it isn't written, it's not a standard, it's just a preference. So you might be feeling that's what you want, but if people don't have something to look back at, it's not necessarily a standard. And 3, consequence. If it's tolerated, not following your standards, it's just a suggestion. So people often say, like, yes, that's what they're supposed to do. No consequences if they don't do it, then it's really just a suggestion that they do it. There's no consequences if they don't. So today, we're going to talk about bringing it together one firm on purpose. First thing you're going to do is define your values. So some of you already have this done. You have your core values. Everybody knows them. Everybody can repeat them. But a lot of firms are kind of in that transition point where they start off with just a few people. They're now growing. They're now at that kind of 15-person mark. Might be going on to that like 30-person mark. Maybe they've transitioned entire leadership of the firm. Maybe the next generation has, you know, stepped into the role. So some firms don't have it at all, and some firms need to revamp theirs. Maybe what the values were 30 years ago are not necessarily what your values are today. So you need to define these core values and spend some real time doing it. Next thing you do is operationalize, embedding culture in intake, everything from intake, client care. Hiring, interview for behaviors, not hypotheticals. So, you know, when someone's not working out, it's kind of like, was that us? What was our hiring process? What was our hiring decision? What was our thoughts, and how did we interview them? 4th thing is run meetings that reinforce the standard. So everyone knows. They don't just hear it once and then do whatever they want. Again, that's a suggestion. Reinforce it. Number 5 is protect the hard conversations that defend it. Number 6, measure quarterly pulses to track health honesty. Okay, hardest question. Would you demote your top biller over this value? So you have a core value. You have your best litigator in your firm who's not meeting that core value at all in any way. Would you fire them over it? Would you demote them over it? So test number 1, specific to your firm, when you're coming up with these values, Move past those generic terms like integrity. You have to put it in your voice. And this is, again, when you have some core values that have been around for many years, it might be worth revisiting, because you do want them in your voice. Write it in your language, use words that your people actually use. And again, it's something they'll be more apt to adopt, and it's not just in theory, it's not generic. This is what your firm believes in as your core values. Something that can be observed in 60 seconds. If it can't be seen, it can't be measured. If you can't point it out on the floor, you can't enforce it. So these core values, you should be able to point to and say, yeah, that's a value. That person delivered on that value. They're expressing that value. Also should imply sacrifice. A real value costs you something. You might pass on revenue. You might walk away from a hire. You might refer a client out rather than keeping them in. Name the last time it cost you, and if you can't, it doesn't yet. Brainstorm the core. This is where you're going to take a lot of time to do this, and it's worth it. Invest that time. 1, name your best team members, then list in writing what makes them great. Not what they do, it's how they do it. So it's not like, okay, they settle more cases than anybody else. How are they doing it? What makes them great at it? Number 2, name your worst hires and what trait caused them to fail. The answer often defines your culture better than your top performers do. So, you have a horrible hire. You have a poor performing employee. What went wrong? Did we hire wrong? Did we not train them well? You need to define that and find out really why. Number 3, cluster, don't list, group the words, look for shapes underneath. 3 to 5 clusters is where the real values live. Distill, name, and define your short list. Narrow to 3 or 5 core values. So you don't want necessarily core values that are 10, 20 deep. Are they really your core values? If you have 20 of them, it might be nice to have, but not likely to be really focused on and people understand. Use vocabulary, again, that fits your firm. Fierce advocacy versus integrity. Write the behavior, not the slogan. 1 paragraph per value, what it looks like on a Tuesday. If it doesn't translate to behavior, it doesn't ship. So again, you're defining your core values, but can you describe what that means in actual behavior? So how do people live up to it? Here's some examples. Again, the fierce advocacy. So what it means, we fight for every inch on behalf of our clients, leaving no stone unturned in litigation. What it looks like, staying late to refine a brief, pushing back on a lowball offer, reading every page of the medical record twice. That's the actionable thing. What are the things that are actually being done to achieve that? Extreme ownership. Again, these are examples of potential core values in your own language. What it means, we don't point fingers, we own the mistake, learn from it, and fix the system that allowed it. What it looks like, bringing a solution alongside every problem, admitting an error in the room immediately and not hiding it until it surfaces louder. Bringing a solution along to every problem. So, for a long time, when I was running a new department and I was being bombarded with questions, I was like, they're just coming to me with every question for an answer, and how are they learning from that? I then started asking everybody and made this kind of a value of our department. When you ask me a question, ask the question and tell me what you think the answer is. You're not going to get in trouble if you're wrong. It's not a test. 1, you might already know the answer and you just need the confidence. 2, I'll know how you're thinking, so how I need to train you to think differently about something. Or 3, you're just plain right. And maybe you have a better answer than I do. So that's where it is, instead of just posing the question or I messed up, it's like, how do I fix it? So this happened, I own it, this is how I'm gonna fix it. Radical candor, I love this one. Truth to power is our brand, so this is very important. If I had a firm, this is what it would be. So caring personally while challenging directly. Feedback is a gift. The rude kind and the silent kind are both refusals. So, rude feedback, not helpful. That's not radical candor. You don't have to be rude. Silence, the opposite of radical candor. You can tell sometimes by someone's body language they disagree with something, but they actually won't speak up and say anything. We need real candor. So what it looks like, having those hard conversations respectfully in the room, refusing to participate in office gossip, even when invited. That radical candor, speak up, say something. You will not be punished for it. You know, we actually encourage it. I think that's a fantastic core value. Client empathy, what does it mean? Understanding that our clients are navigating the worst days of their lives, and that you make routine is that call you make, that routine call you make is the call they replay all weekend. So yeah, you've had 1,000 calls today and you're just kind of running through the motions, and you know, they're gonna think about that entire conversation for the next several days. It's gonna leave your mind. What it looks like, returning calls promptly, explaining complex legal concepts in plain English so that they actually understand it, and then asking how the family's doing. This is how you can teach some degree of empathy. Give a damn, you know, care about the person behind who the client is. So implementing your core values, you're basically going to repeat it until leadership is sick of hearing it. So leadership is responsible for communicating these core values repeatedly in all your stand-up meetings, in all your quarterly meetings, year-end meetings, wherever it is, until they themselves are sick of hearing it, because that's what's going to eventually resonate with people. If you talk to your firm once, hey, we worked on this, these are our core values, boom, please implement it. Okay, that's the last time they hear it. They don't hear any real action about it, they never hear it again, so why is it important? It should be something that is worked on constantly. From the time of onboarding, you are, showing the person that you hired what your true values are. So you bring someone on board and you're not ready for them. They have no computer set up, their badge doesn't work. You know, are they showing that you give a damn about them? Are you showing what your values of your firm are? So from day one, make sure you're ready for the person showing up. Repetition, again, this is what I talked about, until leadership is sick of hearing it. So every meeting, like this should be something that you guys are focusing on. Tie behaviors back to core values. Something happens in the firm, that's great, tie it back to a core value. Express to everyone like, yeah, this was great, this ties back to this value. Show recognition on it. Storytelling, this is great, real firm stories. If you just say something to someone and like, oh, it just sounds like something they read, they threw into AI, they read in a book, you know, if you can tie it back to like a real world example of something that happened to you in their firm, might have happened before like half the people in the firm even worked there, it kind of resonates with people and they're like, okay, I get it. Culture is set at the front desk, and front desk I actually mean by their first experience and their first call. So if you have a value, picking up the phone in 3 rings max at intake. There's no exceptions for we're busy, no exception for, you know, oh, I was still writing my notes from my last call. I'm talking about like intake, and I see some intake managers in here, so I see nodding. No exceptions. 1 missed call is a paid referral that walks across the street to the next firm. Audit your last 200 inbound calls and pull the ring count distribution. See who is answering that phone. First words, caller's name within 30 seconds. Show the caller that they're heard, they're processed. You know, you're actually repeating back to them. Pull 6 call recordings, time it with a stopwatch. Call control is super important. Being on the phone at intake with someone for an hour is not a great intake. I don't care what the intake is. You've wasted time. You're not answering all the other calls that are happening. Call control can still happen in a very good intake and should happen in a good intake in 15 minutes or less. Disposition, every non-fit caller leaves with a referral. Build a referral list with 3 trusted firms and keep it current. Again, so you can often turn down a client and still have them come back to your firm. still have them give you a solid review. If you take care of them in any way, like send them to another firm that might fit them, or turn them down respectfully, there's still a potential referral. I'm going to move through some of the slides because we're running low on time. Behavior beats hypotheticals every single time. Have one question per value, written in advance. So this is when you're hiring. Be more structured about your hiring process, and definitely don't have one person hiring. You have to have more than one person always. Ideally, what I'd love to see is the hiring manager and at least one person, if possible, that does that job. I don't care if they're not a manager. You might be hiring for a paralegal. You have your lead paralegal in there, or your managing partner, and you have a paralegal that does a similar job. Very important. You want all those perspectives, but have it structured. So kind of have out in advance what you're going to ask so you can kind of score it at the end, and there's a rubric to it. Same questions asked the same way to every kind of final interviewee. When you're doing these interviews, and we all have that tell me about a time, it's not hypothetical. Don't ask them like, what would you do in this situation? Ask them, tell me about a time you had this situation and what you did. So they're not as calculated. They can't think through like the proper interview question just to make them look good. If they can give you a real world example, you really know how they process things and how they're reacting to things. And score independently. So you have multiple people interviewing, and you want to compare at the end how their scorecards match up. If you have someone, if you don't do this and you don't write a scorecard, it's very easy to have that, group meeting at the end about like, tell me what you thought about this person, and everyone gives their input. Whoever spoke first is likely setting the tone and might be like, okay, we all want to think the same thing, especially if the manager speaks first. I actually want the manager to speak last on this. But if you have a scorecard where you have, gauge this person independently, there's no refuting that. You just put them all together, and then you really know what you all think about this person and if they're a good culture fit for your firm. Onboarding is the second interview. So turnover is a huge problem in a lot of firms. And what firms are talking about is, hiring is so hard, keep losing people, so I'm constantly hiring. How can we kind of limit that? Again, have a real welcome. They should come in to a desk, a computer, be able to sign in, have all their passwords, like I said, their badge works. Give them the right experience when they come on. In the first 7 days, this is what you want. They want their first week that's full of attention. Don't spend time like trying to fix the problems like you didn't expect them to come. In the second couple weeks, shadow, do, and teach. Provide them with kind of like a buddy, someone in their position, not necessarily their supervisor, and provide them with a written scorecard. The new hire should know on day 15 exactly what great looks like in the role and not just guess what it is. So in this period of shadowing, doing, teaching, they're actually learning what's expected of them in deliverables and their KPIs, but also what's expected of them in behaviors and values. In the last 31 to 60 days, own and fix. Fresh eyes are your most under-leveraged asset. I love to find out from new people what their thoughts and ideas are. Like, what did we miss? Yes, we want them to do how we've laid it out. We want them to follow our SOPs, but maybe they're seeing things that we didn't see because we've been doing it this way for so long. I want that feedback from them, and that's when I'm going to check in on that 60-day review. What can we fix that's broken? What was wrong with their onboarding, their training? What can we work on? Because I want to set them up for success. A great hire who quits in a month or 4 months was lost in that first week, that first unwelcome. Onboarding is retention. So this is what's overlooked in a lot of firms. And like one of the number one complaints we have is what their training is. Lack of training, not good training, no SOPs, No one taught me that. This person's doing it differently than this person. It is worth every penny to invest time in onboarding and training. This is where you're not going to lose those good people. Daily huddles and monthly huddles. I'm a big fan of when you can do this, and I saw some phenomenal success in a firm that had daily huddles that actually thought, that's not practical. Like, you're going to grow out, how can you do this? And they were doing it like I could snap my fingers. They were doing this. I think there's like 60 people on the room, and I thought, oh, when they grow bigger, they're not going to be able to do this. They'll be able to do it. They had it down because it meant something to them. So not saying every firm can do this, but if you can, man, they had one of the best cultures I've ever seen. They had a daily huddle where they had they talked about one specific value. What was a win from yesterday? What's the top priority for today? What are my blockers? And one value, one example, 1 minute. They went around that room, and it was the best thing I've ever seen. That's really the reason why I added this in here. I had never done this at my firm, and I'm still not sure if it was possible with 300 people, but what I saw in that firm that I didn't think was possible was amazing, and it was no BS. I thought, oh, this is going to be a lot of like kissing up and just telling the bosses the way they want to hear. It was not. It was fantastic. And a monthly all hands, 45 minutes, sit down, maybe the first Friday of the month, reflect back on the last month, do a scorecard review, see where you're at. No one should guess like where we're at moving the needle. Like, share that information with them. Get them invested. The top performer who poisons the room costs more than they bill or earn. 3 costs you already pay. Turnover, 1.5 to 2 times to replace someone. We're talking about recruiting time. We're talking about that training time, ramping them up, loss of productivity, someone else having to pick up that case and run with it, or worse, it lays fallow while you're waiting on a new hire. You're losing so much with turnover. Lost revenue, again, case details, things are dropped. Everyone hates getting inherited cases. Let's try to avoid this constant turnover and a bad culture by building a much better culture. And years of reputation. It takes years to build a reputation. You start having kind of that toxic culture due to a number of people and not living up to values. You're getting bad Glassdoor reviews, you're getting bad client experiences, and then trying to rebuild that. Because say you get rid of the problem, say you did tolerate it for a number of months or years and you get rid of it, you're going to take years to rebuild that reputation. So 2 firms, same business model. You could have a toxic culture or a healthy culture. In a toxic culture, the room defends itself. It's all defensive. Quiet is safe. Information is leverage. Mistakes are evidence. We see this a lot, and this is extremely toxic. Hoarding information. There is this stigma of, if I'm the only person in the firm that knows how to do this, and I teach someone else, I'm somehow not as valuable. It's like a weird kind of job security protection. I don't really understand it, and it's not really exemplary of a good leader. The best thing that I've done in my entire career is sharing everything that I've learned along the way, every single bit. I'm not a knowledge hoarder. I think that's a very toxic person in your firm. And again, I think a lot of it comes from insecurity. I think a lot of it comes from, if I'm not the only person who knows it, then, then they could just get rid of me, or I'm just not as valuable, and maybe I won't get the big raise. In reality, that's telling me you actually don't give a shit about the firm. You're not putting the firm first, because you get hit by a bus tomorrow. There's always that scenario. Think about it. You get hit by a bus tomorrow. Can the firm, what's going to happen? If I'm the only one who holds the keys to this information and this knowledge, how long is it going to take them to figure it out and build it back up? It's just not a good culture fit. In a healthy culture, the room defends the firm. Information is shared. Mistakes are lessons. They're not punished. They are lessons that we learn from. and silence is the alarm. So here, 2 axes, 4 people, 1 decision each. You have a low performer who's a high culture fit. I'm going to invest that time in coaching them. They're worth trying to save. This is where I'm going to look back and say, okay, did I train them right? What did we do wrong? Can we retrain them? Those kinds of things. So coaching, if they're a high culture fit but a low performer, invest in that coaching time. Fast exit. Low performer, not a good culture fit. Make that decision fast. You know, they say hire slow, fire fast. That's where you really want to do it. High performer, high culture, reward them. Value them, show them. It's not just monetarily. Sometimes it's recognition. Sometimes it's promoting them, giving them more responsibility. Value those high performers that are high culture fits. You don't want to lose them. Those are the ones you want to hang on to tightly and try to replicate. And again, this is the tough one. A high performer, low culture fit. I'm going to say fire, but I'm going to put a caveat next to that. I had this very example in my firm. It was eminent domain practice. I had a very toxic attorney, extremely toxic, was disrupting the entire group, but he brought in millions every year. This was a tough decision. And we were not in a place in that particular practice area where we could afford to lose him. We built an island. It's actually called Jason Island, because his name was Jason. So we did have to keep him, but we isolated him. We did not want him infecting or hurting the rest of that department. And we were honest with him. We had this conversation, like, look, if this is going to continue to work, this is how it's going to work. You get your one person that can tolerate working with you, because there actually was one. You guys work out of the office. We didn't even want them in the presence of other people, because it's too easy to walk in there and start infecting other people. Jason Island. I've now suggested this at several other firms, and of course the name changes every time. So that is another option. If you truly cannot afford to fire that high performer so low culture fit, that is an option. It's not going to work every time. When I say put them on an island, like, it really is isolation, and that they cannot infect the rest of your people. Otherwise, you do have to make that decision to fire them, because you are losing the rest of the room when you keep them. When you let someone go for a culture violation, the rest of the firm should breathe a sigh of release. This is the litmus test. If they're surprised, you have not communicated the values clearly enough. So if everyone knows this guy was a poor culture fit, they know what the values are. Who you promote signals what you truly value. Again, don't promote on revenue alone. Don't promote just because they're making you a lot of money. They're rarely the best leader, and never automatically so. Score promotions against values. Values should be part of the analysis. Again, are they good culture fit? When you're reviewing someone, there should be things tied back to your culture and your values. And leadership requires the multiplier. Does this person raise the culture of the people around them, or quietly lower it? So a lot of firms make the mistake of promoting their top performing in numbers, paralegal, attorney, whatever it is, and do no analysis of, like, they make a good leader? Will they share knowledge? Will they teach other people? Will people respond to them? Can I coach them to be a good leader? Don't just promote that person into a leadership role because their numbers are good. It is not going to work. Additional analysis needs to be done. I think I'm running out of time, so let's get through these. Cultures lived in the middle. I do want to touch on this. Middle managers really set the temperature. So you can have your high-level leadership, and now you're a lot of you are in that place of building your middle management. And I'm telling you, this is where your culture is going to live and die, is with these middle managers. Train your managers as culture carriers. Hold managers accountable for the culture of their micro teams, and promote managers who model the value, not just the ones that have the best numbers. Breaking silos, again, one firm, one mission. Sharing KPIs across the firm, cross-functional shadowing, all hands on deck, everyone understanding the same issue, or same mission, same values, and displaying all those. Again, I know I'm running out of time, but let's not overlook your remote teams. So I know a lot of you have fully remote teams. I know a lot of you have hybrid teams. You don't get those water cooler moments, so you need to be very intentional about building this culture with your remote employees. And a lot of you have offshore employees. Good rule of thumb on that, teach or make sure that they feel like they are part of the firm. You treat them like you do anybody else in your firm. You know, send them swag. Have them included in all the meetings. Like, you want retention in your offshore hires too. You don't want just to be replacing them all the time. Recognize the value, not just the result. Tie public praise to a specific value. So again, you've established your core values. People are really like understanding what they are. So when you're giving them public praise, tie it to a value. It resonates again with everyone else, like the actual importance of them. Put your money where your values are. Invest in that training and development. Invest in the onboarding time. I cannot say enough to invest in that training. Modern tools that remove friction, slow software and like antiquated software tells your team like they don't really care about this. They're not trying to make it more efficient or easier for us. And have meaningful team events, not forced fun. I actually had a firm once tell us that they had this Friday lunch every month and it was forced fun. Please avoid forced fun. Make them kind of intentional things that people like want to attend and not have to attend out of obligation.